What's happening, everybody? John Hendricks here alongside Ross Jackson coming at you for another episode of Second and Saints. Ross, I got to tell you, like Peaches and Herb reunited, feels so good. Like I'm back home. I'm in your
I
studio.
bet,
You're in your
man.
studio. Like, man, I feel good. I don't know about you. I know you. I know you do, but
I feel good. I always feel good. No, I'm with you, man. I'm happy to be back here. I'm happy that we're both like back and comfortable and good and all of this stuff. It was nice doing a show from Tulane's press box
yeah, yeah,
Tuesday night, but I like being home. So yeah, I'm with you on
yeah.
that one.
Yeah. And so I know people are like, oh, hey, wait, these guys do have stuff that they do at home. Like, this is what our normal setup was kind of like before everything with training camp and stuff, and it'll change up a little bit and stuff. But man, good to be back home. Saints back home as well. They were over in Metairie at their practice facility today. Metairie. You know how it is, Kendre. But over back in Metairie for day 20 of Saints training camp. Didn't get the full effects of the heat. Actually woke up today. It felt really nice outside. Maybe that
wasn't too bad.
fall air is coming a little bit, but a little bit outside for kind of like the position drills, individual stretch, all that stuff. But then they move inside for team drills. A good day in pads. Some surprises here and there, I'd say, and some good signs. But I guess let's dive into it. What's some of your overall takeaways from day 20?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I would say from this practice on Wednesday was seeing the returns. I mean, it's just great to see this team finally be on the right side of the conversation on the injury side a little bit. And so seeing Paulson Adebo get back to team drills, for instance, Pete Werner get back to team drills, even if it was just for a little bit and everything like that before he ended up leaving. But then you had Rico Payton working off to the side while the team was in the outdoor portion, along with undrafted free agent wide receiver Mason Tipton. So it's good to see all of that and to see the team kind of back on that way. This was a practice that was a little bit more geared to getting ready for their opponent. So not a lot of flashiness, not a lot of fireworks, just a lot of work. And so that would be the other thing I would take away, is that it was just a big work day for this team. And it was kind of nice to see sort of the change of pace.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, like the work you mentioned, just because I mean, it was different. We're not used to seeing them kind of working already on opponents like at training camp. I don't recall that last year. Not saying that they never have done that, but for them to kind of run through and do these plays, like have the defense go up against the Titans offense or the offense go up against the Titans defense. And, Dennis Allen even saying that, hey, we're kind of trying to get into regular season mode already, which is a good sign. So I'm kind of there, but we still have obviously a few training camp practices left. We've got Thursday, then Friday in the Superdome, and then you got the last preseason game, and then I think there's like one or two more, and then we're here at final cuts and stuff. And it's crazy because I say that out loud, and I guess where I would want to go next is you only got a few days left if you're Kendre Miller, if you're a couple of these players. And man, I tell you what, I don't know. Dennis Allen's maybe not a guy that totally runs the bus over you, but I think with Kendre Miller, he ran the bus over, backed it up, and then just kept on rolling. Like
he's already dead.
Yeah, he's already dead. Throw the towel. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the vibe. But look, for those who don't know or haven't heard, like elaborate a little bit about what Dennis Allen said, and not that it was directly at Kendre Miller, but it was kind of directly at Kendre Miller.
Yeah, I mean, he spoke a lot about, not being able to know like how a guy fits into, especially with their new system. Like great questions from Nick Underhill around this and asking like, how does the fact that there's a new offensive system impact, your ability to evaluate a guy that you haven't been able to see this offseason? And one of the things that Dennis Allen highlighted was that like they haven't gotten really any new information about him since they drafted him, basically, because he
Yeah.
came in with an injury, with the MCL injury. Took a little while to rehab from that. Then he had, I believe, I can't remember what the other injury was that kind of kept him out for most of the season. And then, experienced some other stuff over the course of training camp that kept him out. He had that TMJ incident at one point too. And then, he got a good game against the Atlanta Falcons that kind of showed you a little bit of what he's got, but it wasn't really new information for New Orleans. And they get him out here, and then he's kind of learning this new system, but they never really got to see him implement it at all in terms of their installation over the course of training camp or anything like that. And so just no information on him. And then Dennis Allen went on to talk about how he's pretty pleased and pretty comfortable with what they have in the running back room, which inherently excludes Kendre Miller because he ain't a part of the running back room at the moment. He's a part of the training room. You know what I mean? And so I thought
Yeah.
that was pretty notable as well. And I'll give Dennis Allen his flowers for trying to be understanding too, in terms of like, hey, look, everybody's body heals differently, and not all injuries are the same, and all these other things. But I think it's pretty clear that there's some frustration in terms of
Yeah.
and even if it's not frustration, and instead it's just that like the question marks and the uncertainty are coming off as frustration, I would understand that too, if I'm being entirely honest. And that's what I'm feeling. That's what I felt from a little bit of Dennis Allen's answers tonight or today.
Yeah, and the injury was the ankle injury. That's what he left the
Oh,
Bears game with. So it was just it's a slew of things. And I know hindsight's 2020. I know I've seen the people. Well, this is why you should have taken Tyjae Spears, all this other stuff. I understand hindsight. You could be saying the same thing about a lot of things, whether they get it right or they get it wrong. Like I think about Michael Thomas. There was like over 5 receivers that were taken above him in 2016. You don't think those teams regret passing over Michael Thomas? Like, I mean, it works both
right.
ways, I guess, in some aspects. But look, it's tough because we've talked plenty about Kendre Miller. We've talked about his abilities, his skill, but he's talking about him just being able to pick up the playbook and being able to execute on that. And look, we've talked about Jordan Mims. We love us some Jordan Mims. We love us some, the guys that are there with the James Robinsons and Jacob Kabodi, but we've seen them and they've been available. You know what I mean? So that's like really goes in their favor. And it's just a tough thing because, like Dennis Allen said, he's got the talent. He's got a lot of talent. But if you can't be there on the field, and now the reality is you have maybe 3 practices left before the regular season, 3 or 4, and the preseason game against the Titans. I mean, we haven't even seen this guy in a long time, right? And like he was working off to the side when we were in California, but now we're not even seeing him. And of course, back at home, they've got a separate training facility, like where they can kind of rehab and stuff. So it's not always a telltale, but the hourglass, the time is almost up, the candle is almost burnt out, whatever you want to call the groundhogs bringing you mail. Whatever euphemism you want to use, it's all coming to a head. And for
Yeah.
Kendre Miller, look, he could get the best thing for him right now is if he lands on IR or something like that, like under the new rules. That's really his only saving grace right now. I see he can't just put him on there thinking that he's going to come back magically and pick up this offense and be something in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, like that's gonna be one of the biggest pieces because look, Kendre Miller ran a lot of inside zone during his time at TCU, did not run a lot of outside zones. This is a new kind of endeavor for him. I mean, look, you'll be able to pick it up. The rules of the zone run or the rules of the zone run. You're not going to be completely left behind here, but you've got to be able to show that you can learn a new system entirely and not just a new run style. And so without the ability to be able to do that, then yeah, I think that it becomes really tough. And I agree with you. IR with the new rules and stuff like that of being able to put 2 players on IR before roster or at roster cuts without having to move them to your active roster and without ruling them out for the season. I think that works because Miller nor Saldiveri can go on physically unable to perform because they've already performed. They've already been on the field. They've already participated in training. Oh, look at that.
Good question. Yeah. Look, you were reading
time
it.
question by Benjamin.
I was going to bring that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, so neither of them can go on the physically unable to perform list or an NFI list because they've already participated in training camp. Those are lists for people that aren't able to participate in training camp. And so because they've already been out there, they can't do that. So they have to maybe go to injured reserve, but they can't go to injured reserve right now because it'll end their season. And so you either carry them over on the active roster, then move them, or you use the new rules that allow you to move 2 over. I think he's a prime candidate for it. It gives him some flexibility, like we discussed in yesterday's episode. And it gives him the opportunity to still be able to get him in the building when he's healthy to where he gets the opportunity to prove, because I do think he deserves the opportunity. to at least prove that he can be a part of the team and a part of the offense and all those other things and show that he can be a part of it. I just don't know if he's going to be able to get there this week.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it just really is, and I think that when you look at it, I've seen some other things like Klint Kubiak, all these guys. They have kind of their guys right now, and technically Kendre Miller isn't one of the guys that they drafted or anything like that. So I don't know that I'd say there's much tie to there, but at the same time, it's going to just be interesting to see how this all works, right? And when you look at final rosters, I know there's a ton of projections going out. I know there's a lot of things that are happening right now. Some of those types of things are going to be the same things that the front officer has to deal with, and there's just going
Right.
to be major question marks because if he is hurt, you put him on IR, you give him a little bit more of a leash, I guess, or leeway, if you will, and so I think that if they feel that he can still contribute and be something, then they'll maybe go that route. But at the same time, I got to be honest, I can see them just cutting their losses just because he just hasn't been available. He hasn't been.
Yeah.
I feel like at this point, he's probably missed more action than he has been on the field, like in
Oh,
combined with
yeah.
practicing, training camp, all that stuff. Like I just feel like it's been that. And it was weird because even his ankle injury that he had against the Bears in week 9, like we never saw him again. So I don't know if it's something where I know some players get to like choose whether they rehab at the facility and other things or use their own doctors. That's happened in the past, but I just don't know for whatever reason. But it's a really weird case with a
Yeah.
hamstring injury that we talked about it. And of course, don't forget to go back to Second and Saints. Check out our past episodes. Like, subscribe, check our pod and stuff because we did talk about this on Tuesday from Tulane. But it's a tough thing to deal with, and it's not just him. Guys like we've talked about, Mason Tipton, working off to the side today, but he was the hot hand, and now his potential shot at a roster is probably not going to happen as much because he got injured. Injuries are going to
Hmm.
happen. Injuries are part of the game, but maybe a viable practice squad candidate. I don't know what they do in Nick Saldivari, but some of these guys, and I think it was Matt Paris that put out like a list of here's the players that got injured and how
Yeah.
we haven't seen, which was really great work on his part. But Miller was the top. Lattimore, we understand. At least we've seen Marshawn Lattimore. We haven't seen
Yeah.
Nick
Big difference.
Saldivari, and some of these other players that have got hurt. So it's tough, but at the same time, this team's charging ahead. They're pushing forward. They got all the information and assessment they need for Jordan Mims, a James Robinson, and even Jacob Kabodi. Like it's there, and the information they can make evaluations. I guess my question is just sticking with this running back topic. Is Jordan Mims going to be enough? Like, do you really believe what DA says with the depth, or if somebody comes available at final cuts that you're like, ooh, somebody that could fit this system, plug and play, maybe a veteran type guy that maybe gives them a boost? Do you feel like they would make a move there?
The only thing that actually the only thing that actually leads me towards no on that is that there was a guy that was exactly that sat on the market up until maybe like 2 weeks ago. And that was Matt Breida. Matt
Yeah.
Breida was the perfect fit for what the New Orleans Saints needed. Maybe not as strong a pass blocker, perhaps. Didn't know the culture of the team and the way that guys like James Robinson and Jordan Mims knew, being that they spent time with the team last year. Uh, and so maybe that was the difference, or maybe that was the impact. But no, I think if they walked into the regular season with, let's say, Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams, Jordan Mims, with James Robinson on the practice squad, or vice versa between Mims and Robinson, whichever way they decide to go, veteran experience or not, I think they'd be perfectly happy with that. And the big thing that makes me feel that way is that, when there was a guy sitting on free agency this entire offseason. Now, maybe Breida didn't want to go. Maybe that was maybe the two-way street wasn't there, right? So maybe I'm overthinking it. But that's one of those things that makes me feel like, no, I think they actually are pretty comfortable with what they have. But I don't know, maybe now that I've almost talked myself out of what I was saying because I forgot that contracts go both ways. And so maybe it was more about the player not wanting to be there. So maybe there's a chance that like the right person becomes available. But I genuinely think that the Saints will be comfortable with those three running backs and their extra practice squad running back if they need to put Kendre Miller on injured reserve for a moment.
Yeah, and look, here's the reality of it. You're presumably having Alvin ready for about 60% of the snaps, right?
Right.
Jamal will take the rest, and maybe 15-20% he's used on the third down, a lot for blitz pickups, blocking, and stuff like that. Presumably Jordan Mims may not see, like, whoever that running back is may not see a ton of snaps, maybe like 5 to 10 maybe, but they're going to probably play more special teams, which I think Jordan Mims has a
Yeah.
leg up there, where he can play a lot more special teams and do a lot more things, and he's proven versatility in that aspect. And look, the other part of it in the running game is Taysom Hill. I mean, he's going to be used a lot, so I guess I say that because I've mentioned this before. Like, even if a Mason Tipton were to make the final roster, it doesn't mean he's going to play, right? Like, we saw this with A.T. Perry last year. Make the roster, was inactive first half of the year, and then they got him in, and he started to catching on.
Right.
So it's not just a thing where you make the roster, you're in like Flynn. This is a thing where it just plays out this way. And so I guess I'm saying I'm not getting too bent out of shape about it. Like, it does suck. And I think Jordan Mims could show something. He's been used in red zone. He's been used in a lot of different areas, improving his versatility. I think that they could use him on the field, but when it boils down to it, Alvin, Taysom, and Jamal Williams are going to be your top three-headed monster, assumably, to get the groundwork done for New Orleans.
Yeah. Completely agree. I think you're right. And look, I think that big catch by Mims in the Ullman practice too, down that left sideline and stuff like that, like, it showed a little something different from him too. Like, I think you're still learning new things about Jordan Mims. I think that's got to be exciting for a coaching staff that's looking for somebody to pan out.
Yeah. He had the one tough moment where that ball went off his hand and led to that Rattler interception. Good play by DeMarco Jackson. You almost got another one too, where he jumped the route and stuff for Jay Kaner pass. But again, he's going to make mistakes. Like, everybody makes mistakes. We saw Alvin get tackled for a loss today. I mean, like, it just happens. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody's inept from looking great. I mean, Rattler didn't have the greatest practice. Neither did Hanger necessarily. I mean, they made some good throws, but I don't know that they did anything that was as well as Carr did. Obviously, I think that's a good thing. Let me jump off to this one, because this is obviously, besides the Kendre Miller, this is a big topic, and Paulson Adebo. But at this point, Dennis Allen has said nobody's taking the right tackle spot. Nobody's taking the left guard. And he's waiting for somebody to take the freaking job, quoting him, right? And that's exactly how he put it. Lucas Patrick left early. He's dealing with cramp. So did Jonathan Abrams. So no big deals there.
Welcome back to New Orleans, gentlemen.
Got out of the Cali weather. Now welcome back. Here's your gift, right? But
sorry.
At this point, Dennis Allen's saying that Trevor Penning has the advantage right now, but he's waiting for that player to give him that moment where they say, we know inside the building that this is our guy. We briefly touched on it. Trevor Penning had a much better outing against the 49ers. I still have the impression that he should play against the Titans pretty extensively. Maybe not as a 32 snap like he did last week, but maybe 20, 25. I think you still need a good look at him. I think you're going to get a good look at Oli Udoh, but at this point, it keeps coming out. Do they have to find a right tackle? I mean, we've talked about the possibilities at roster cuts. We've talked about guys that are on the market. I mean, we've gotten the David Bakhtiari question 1,000 times. And I mean, he's left tackle. I think that's where he's going to suit. We've gotten questions about Donovan Smith. Like, there are potential options. And I even joked today, I'm like, if left guard didn't work out, like, I think we mentioned this. If somebody mentioned this the other week about Andres Pete and the Raiders, like, I don't think he'd come back at all. But like, it's like, are we at this point? You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't know if they're just going to find a diamond in the rough that's going to be your starting right tackle at the moment. I think it's either Trevor Penning or Oli Udoh. And I agree. I think as of right now, it would be Trevor Penning.
Yeah, it would have to be, because no other person has come up and performed, remarkably better than what Trevor Penning has shown, even though Trevor Penning has struggled. But Trevor Penning has shown some improvement from week to week of those two games. And so hopefully he can keep that going. I agree with you. I think he's got to play. I think Taliesin Fuang has got to play a little bit against Tennessee as well. I think there's value in that. And I think Lucas Patrick should play as well. And so I'm with you on all that. You still want to get more evaluations of these guys. But yeah, no, I do think that it's still Penning. And I agree with you. You're not going to find a diamond in the rough anywhere. No team is going to be looking to trade away its starting right tackle. You know what I mean? Like, NFL offensive line depth is a barren wasteland, everything like offense. The issue with offensive line is that anytime that like a player gets to high school or college and is a really athletic offensive lineman, they get moved to a different position. They get moved to defensive line or something like that. And so you end up not really investing in this offensive line talent. I think you're starting to see that start to change. Like you look at some of the SEC offensive lines going into 2025, you'll probably find some really good offensive linemen out of here. LSU's got a couple of starting tackles that should be top 15, top 20 guys and stuff like that. But just not really that much investment in the position when it comes to the younger entry level places of developing talent. And so I think the best that you might be able to do is if somebody's got, a third right tackle that they feel like could start on somebody else's team and they decide to try to get, a day 3 pick for them instead of just cutting them at roster cuts, that's going to be where you get really lucky. And maybe you're going to be able to do that. But we also don't typically see the Saints make those types of moves at roster cuts. So typically they trade away players at roster cuts to avoid letting guys go without getting anything in return. And so that'll be the big thing that I'll be looking for there is if there's a case of that happens, or if some team cuts a tackle that for whatever reason the Saints believe in way more than the team that cut them, everything like that, which happens every year, right? That's free agency. And so, it's not impossible, but I think more than likely Trevor Penning's your starter at right tackle. And then if that doesn't work out, they'll have a plan B developed in terms of where they turn after that.
Yeah, and look, if plan A doesn't work and they have to go to plan B, we've mentioned this too. Instead of looking at a pass rusher, probably for next year, they're going to have to look at a right tackle. Like they're going to just have to rebuild the trenches, and they're going to have to invest in it. And I mean, they could do free agency, but you're just going to have to look at it. And of course, it depends on how they finish. There's a lot of variables. I'm not even thinking about next year. Obviously, I'm worried about week 1. Like I know Jamal Williams is a guy like he's ready for week 1. Everybody is ready for week 1. I think that's kind of the point we're at in training camp that, okay, we've done this. Now it's time to go out there and actually play, hit some people in the mouth, do all this other stuff. But, look, I hope it works for Trevor Penning. I see encouraging growth. I see promise. And if you go back and rewatch that 49ers game, I broke down every single snap, and it was just kind of like a basic overview. It wasn't like a film study, quote unquote, but just saying, here's where he was, here's what the kind of the play you did and all this other stuff. And I mean, I didn't find much of anything, maybe 2 or 3 reps where I'm like, okay, he got whipped or he didn't do this or he didn't do that. But again, it's mostly positive. I'll take a 90% or better on an offensive lineman. I just will. And so I don't know. And so, but that's obviously the big thing, big focal point, and hopefully we get our answer on that this week. And Kyle Hergel, he took some left guard snaps today. He's a guy that I think might have a chance of sneaking in. Even Dennis sounds like he's like a practice squad guy, but he also said somebody could make the roster. It depends on how they assemble this roster. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do wide receiver. I don't know some of the variables offhand. They've got a lot of decisions to make, right? And so, look, it's getting close, and we're getting that much closer to week 1 and such. But it's going to be interesting. I think that looking more at today, I guess we should really talk about Derek Carr, because I mean, again, we talked about Charlie Smith, Derek Carr.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he has played fairly well. I think some people, like yesterday was a little bit off. Like he did do some good things in the red zone, but he didn't have as much of a chemistry with Chris Olave yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it kind of resolved a little bit of that today. One series he went 5 of 5, and he was hitting a lot of different things over the field. Getting Juwan Johnson back in the mix is going to be big for them. But I think Carr had a pretty good day overall. I think it was some of the things that we just need to see. But I think when you look at this team, you don't need Derek Carr to be a top 10 quarterback, right? Like he's not paid like a top 10 quarterback, and that's not a shot or dig or anything like that.
No.
He's on par. What he makes is on par with how its performance is, kind of, if that makes sense. And so, and he has a higher ceiling, I feel like. But again, I don't think this year you're going to see as much of a rattled Derek Carr as you had the first year. I think he's got this offense. I think he feels comfortable, and not think, but I know he feels a lot more comfortable. We're seeing him move around a lot and getting him moving, which is a good thing for him to make some things happen. And so look, I like what I saw from Derek Carr in practice. I think that he's going to continue to trend on the uptick, in my opinion.
Yep, I would agree. 8 of 10 today. It was 3 of 3 to Chris Olave, all of which on crossing routes that were working towards a
Mhm.
sideline or attack in the middle of the field. And I think that's important to highlight because some of those missed connections between Carr and Olave have typically been missed timings when it comes to those types of routes. So it was great to see that kind of get take a step forward. I don't think that it's resolved.
No,
You know what I mean? They still have a lot of work to do. There's still 18 weeks left in the season. There's still 18 weeks of a season to play, all
yeah.
those other things. But I think that seeing that take a step in the right direction, I thought was one of the big positives for me for Derek Carr today.
Yeah, for sure. And it's again, he's the plan for uh today, and he's probably the plan for next year unless something crazy happens. So again, if you're a Saints fan, you want to see this happen. You want to see it come together. And so I think that he's obviously going to be a big part of it. I think the defense is going to be just fine. I think the offense, they're going to get some things together. I don't expect it to be as crisp as possible when they come out in the first few weeks, but and that's not an excuse. I just feel like that they're going to be able to move the ball more effectively than they were able to last year. And I think leaning on that ground game, doing the outside runs, like I tell you what, with Trevor Penning, the run game, like I don't ever question the run game when Trevor Penning's in. Like I think he's been able to put himself in positions. I think he's been able to do a lot of things to where they'd be able to run on the left side, the right side, up the middle, and I feel really good about that. But
Yeah.
again, it's a lot of nervous people that are fans of this team, but I don't get the sense that they're nervous inside the building over at Airline Drive.
Yeah. Yep. I would completely agree with that.
Yeah. Mills he wants to make sure he's putting you on blast to make sure that he's your
Oh,
biggest viewer.
biggest
So
viewer. Well,
yeah.
love you too. And a who dat, baby.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Man. All right. So we did get to see some outside stuff. I guess let's jump in. We can start with I guess some other things, getting Paulson Adebo's back. Taliesin
Yeah.
Fuanga doing a little bit more offensive line drills, not team yet, but he's not there. But Paulson Adebo was participating, so that's a great sign for
Yeah,
him.
it's huge.
Other things we saw outside before we moved in. Lou Headley punting day struggled
Hmm.
early. Like he had the second punt was a wobbler, with only like 3.53 as I got
Yeah, that
it,
one
and
was a little bit
then
rougher.
the fourth one was a off as well, like 3.87. But then I think after that he strung together like one, two, three, about six straight kicks that were pretty good, including a couple
Yeah.
plays that got down and stuff. I still think this punting battle is wide open. I don't know if the kicking battle is open as much, but I do believe the punting battle is as open as it can be. And
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting because I think the small dynamic for me is if you do stick with Blake Grupe, which I believe that's where they're going to trend that way,
Yeah, probably.
and then do they stick with Lou Headley and know what they have? Because that operation, like the operation between him and Matt Hayball, like Groupie and Hayball versus him and Headley, I think that obviously plays a factor. And we saw that kind of early on last year in the operation too. So some of the missed kicks were because of the operation. So do you take that chance because of a Matt Hayball with a better leg? And obviously, I think we've seen plenty from him that you probably do feel good about him being punter, or do you just kind of stick with what you got and then keep an eye on things?
I could really go either way. I think for me, the Matt Hayball leg is so enticing, man. Like just the ability that he has, the location that he's got on the ball, like all that kind of stuff. Like I think that like that is so aesthetically pleasing. And but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's better, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you respect the consistency of Lou Headley in terms of location and stuff like that. It's just
Yeah.
that like I see a lot more successful punts come off of Hayball's leg than I do off of Headley's leg. Like I see a lot more shanks and stuff like that, or floaters and everything like that. I think that's been like one of those big things that creates a lot of unknown around, like just enough unknown around Lou Headley. Like if those got cleaned up, this probably wouldn't even be a conversation. Like Lou Headley
Right.
would be so far ahead if it wasn't for those little mishaps here and there and stuff like that. So I think if they can address that, I think the team is going to be more comfortable keeping its operation together than not. And so I think that like there's a real value in that, having the same snapper, holder, kicker, having the same punter, having the same kicker, all those other things. Like I think all that is big. And so the thing that's really tough is, do you change one of them without changing both of them?
Yeah.
Like if you go with hay ball and then you mess with the operation at the holder, does that really, is that just as big a reset as changing both out? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that that's the other thing I think about. Like kicker's a little bit easier too, because you're going to be able to keep Charlie Smith on your practice squad basically no matter what, because the roster exemption that you get with him as an international player, or for Smith, sorry. Yeah. I mean, I think that this is one of those. I mean, we say this all the time, John, but I think this is one of those tie goes to runner conversations again.
Yeah.
That like you go with the incumbent unless Matthew Hayball finds some way over the course of next week to just blow this out of the water.
Yeah, I'm interested in that Superdome practice. I know we're gonna get to see
Yeah.
him punt on Thursday, but also I think he should get some work in the Superdome too. I'm excited to see that. And even if he doesn't on Friday during practice, he's definitely gonna get some, during the game
Mhm.
on Sunday, obviously. And so again, I don't know, and it even goes back to your thing too. Even if some of these guys, because we had this question, I don't know how many episodes ago, it's like if somebody does well in the preseason versus whether they do the
Oh
practice
yeah, right.
route. Like who we've seen in practice be more consistent and more, appealing is Hayball, right? Like,
Yeah,
but
good
there's
point.
times where you're looking at it, and I don't know because I'm not the coaching staff, I'm not evaluating, but again, it's a conundrum on their hands because I guarantee you, if a Hayball gets free in the market, he's going to get picked up by somebody. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's just going to happen because, and again, not saying that you have to stash him or anything like that or do anything shady, but it's just the truth that I think that a lot of players that are on this team, the way it's been competitive, some of these players will probably get picked up by other teams, and I don't know who exactly, but I feel it that it's going to be more than we think. You know what I mean? And so
Mhm.
I don't know. Uh, I like this one from Ethan. Saints will be underrated this season. Coward stuff or the coward, Colin Coward. Oh God, let me not get on my soapbox on that. But just as like Kurt Benikert talking about his stuff with the and all that. Like, I mean, come on,
Oh
guys.
yeah.
Like, know what clickbait is and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, if you believe what Colin Coward says, just go follow the breadcrumbs in the trail and you'll get your answers. But I
Right.
don't know. I can't say 12-5. I can't say 14-3. And the biggest thing I tell you, I'm still maintain I think 9 wins is where I'm at. And I won't
Mhm.
move off of that. I can move to 10 or 11 if they beat the Cowboys or if they beat the Eagles. If
Sure.
they beat both, yeah, I absolutely think
Mhm.
that they can fit in this category. And if they could beat the Chiefs, like I feel like the sky's the limit. But also, even if they beat some of those teams early in the year, that doesn't guarantee success. But for a team that's been saying we just need one more win, we just need one more win. Well, in order to get that one more win, you're going to have to beat one of these teams. And so
Yeah.
I think they have the ability, but it's all about the execution. It doesn't matter what
Yeah.
I believe. It doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what anybody believes. It's all about the execution inside the game that's going to spell the difference for it. And so I don't know. I know we got our predictions. And again, spoiler alert, mine's 9-8. That's where I see it. There's too many what ifs with this team. You know what I mean? It's an if scenario without maybe spoiling yours, or if you want to say, what was your kind of assessment where you fall with the Saints this year's season?
Yeah, I don't think people are going to be very happy with my prediction.
Oh,
Um,
we just shut this out and down. Oh, sorry. Okay.
I don't think people are going to be very happy with my prediction, but hear me out.
Okay. I'm
Um,
listening.
I don't know that the roster's improved. I think that they've gotten some talented young players, but I don't know that it's improved for 2024. I think that they're set up for some nice development in the future. But I don't know that the roster's improved in 2024. And that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I talked about that on Locked On Saints like ages ago and kind of broke down like position group by position group. Did they get better? Did they not get better? Or did they stay the same? And I think that that's the thing is like, I don't think that they got worse at a lot of places, but I don't think they got better at a lot of places either. I think they got better at edge rusher or on the defensive line as a whole. I think they got better at linebacker, and that's
Very much.
kind
Yes.
of yeah. That's like probably the easiest opinion ever. But I don't know that they got better anywhere else. And so what you're really hoping for is that the system lifts and that other players will be better than they were last year. Like I think tight end gets inherently better because you get Juwan Johnson back. And if he stays healthy, then that position group inherently gets better than they were last year when he was injured and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, we're talking about a lot of hypotheticals in this. And
Mhm.
so my biggest thing is, how long does it take for the system to set in place? How long does it take for them to be successful with the system? That's my biggest thing. That and health are the things to me that derail this season. To where if it
Yeah.
takes another 11 weeks to get the system down, then you're in
Can't.
trouble. You know what
Yeah,
I
it
mean?
cannot.
And that
It really can't.
yeah, and that's what happened last year, and that's the only reason why I say that. It's not that I'm expecting it to happen this year. I'm comparing to last year.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of reasons for them to be worse than they were last year. I don't have a lot of reasons for them to be better than they were last year either yet, until I see the offensive system work. Because if you
Yeah.
really think about it, we've seen 5 drives for the starters, 4 of which were failures, and then one 16-play, 95-yard drive was really nice. And so which one's true? The one you saw 4 times or the one you saw once? And
Right.
I think that it gets to eventually be the one that you saw once the system sets in, but that's going to take some time. And so for me, it's about how you start the season. If you start the season and you just in those first 5 games, you go 1-4, then I think this is a 7-10 team. If you finish that first 5 and you steal one of those wins from um, Dallas, Philly, or Kansas City, and you're 3-2, then I think this could be a 10 or 11 win team. And so I'm really in that range of 7 to 11 wins for this team, more likely 7 to 10 wins for this team. Because once I see the offensive system click and I see them able to execute, then all of a sudden I go, okay, now there's a reason for this team to be better than they were last year. But I don't know
Mhm.
that until they play a football game, like a
Yeah.
real football game. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's a little bit tough. And I'm going to be honest, like in the NFL, typically speaking, it's worse before it's better. And so that's part of why I'm not willing to go so far as double digit wins just yet for this
Yeah.
team.
No, and you touched on something that we've talked about probably since day one. What we want to see with this offense is
Hmm.
consistency. That's it. Consistently use Taysom Hill. Consistently use Alvin Kamara. Consistently do. Like I remember after the Patriots game last year, I think I wrote an article. Not I think I wrote an article saying, "Was that the real Saints?" You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like because
right.
it
Yep.
was nothing like what we had seen, and then suddenly they had an offensive explosion, but they were playing a really bad team now. Like you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? It's like, yeah, it was great seeing them blow them out like 34-0, but was that even the real team? Because
Yeah.
I think it was a false sense of security saying, okay, now they've got this figured out, and then go to the next week and it's just like, what? You know what I mean? Like that was just the thing, is they can't be on this carousel where they're just like win one, lose two, win one, lose two, win one, lose three, like, and then say, oh, end of the season, let's make our push. We had our players meeting, we had our rah-rah. Like that can't happen again this year. That's the same thing that's been happening for years. And if they're talking and saying this is different, I don't expect it to get to that point. But at the same time, it's on them, you know. And again, we've talked about the pressure on a lot of players in some aspects, but this is also a pressure on the coaching staff. I don't think there's a super big pressure on Klint Kubiak to deliver in his first year, right? Like I
No.
think he can, but
Yeah.
this is more about Dennis Allen and his ability to manage this team and to be able to get them a winner when it's all said and done. And he's either going to do that or he's not going to do that. And
Yeah.
again, you can't justify saying, okay, well, we were close again and you didn't make the playoffs. It just doesn't
Yeah.
work, especially if you're this fan base is 3 years removed from the playoffs. It just doesn't work. I just don't
Yeah.
see it. But I want to believe that they're a better team than what we think and what people are saying. But you know, it's important because next year could, like John just said, next year could look a lot different if
Yep.
this doesn't work. If it does work and they get, like I said before, we talked, if they get 10 or 11 wins and they get into the playoffs and then maybe push to like a wild card and win one and then a divisional, I could see them going all in 2025. Like,
Oh,
I just feel like it. I
absolutely.
can think they say,
Yeah.
okay, we got it together. We figured it out. Let's build and enhance the pieces. Let's re-sign Chase Young. Let's get all these cornerstones. Now let's go for it. Right. Like, I think that's
Yeah.
kind of what we're looking at here. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
big
I
deal.
think that the defense, which I expect to be very, very good. I
Yeah,
think we all expect to be very, very good. It's a
sure.
Dennis Allen defense, but also like really talented personnel wise too. I think the defense being really good makes every game just about every game winnable, right?
Yeah,
And so one or two plays will make the difference for this team over and over again. Typically, that hasn't gone well for them in previous years, but if that goes well for them this year, then I think that tells the whole story. My concern is that this team went from being a team that had really, really good offensive talent, but a system that didn't have the ability to elevate it, to having the system that can elevate its really, really good talent, but the execution isn't there right
yeah,
away. I think
yeah,
that's my only big concern with this team, which is a sizable concern. Don't get me wrong, but I think that the defense will help to erase a little bit of that. So I will give them that the
yeah,
defense and the caliber with which they play should make every game winnable for this team. And that's
yeah.
why it's so hard to be super low on them, just like it's so hard to be super high on them.
Yeah, and again, I think I've always maintained, and I just until I'm proven otherwise, they're just not a team that can benefit from one side just dropping the ball. Like if they can't if the offense gets going and the defense falls, they can't win a game. If the defense
Right.
gets it going and offense can't generate points, they just don't win. Like they don't
Right.
have that luxury, and I don't know that they're going to have it this year either. But maybe we'll be surprised, maybe not. But I don't know. It's getting close to week one. We're gonna see. And
I can't
again,
wait.
I don't base anything off of week one. Like I don't care if they beat
Right.
the brakes off the Panthers. I don't care. I want to know what they do in week two against Dallas in Dallas. And I want to know what they do against week three in Philly. Then I'll know what kind of team this is. Because if they can go up there and steal a game on the road, then I'd be more inclined to believe. And if they were able to, even if they lose that one, they come back home and they beat up on the Eagles or they beat the Eagles, then I'll be more inclined to believe. But until then, I'm not worried. I'm not going to get hyped up over a week one win over the Panthers. They're not going
Yeah.
to be that good. And at the same time, that's a little bit scary for them trotting into the Superdome because they could upset the Saints too. I mean, like it just could
Yeah.
happen. You know what I mean? Like we've seen it too many times. But yeah, I guess we should talk about training camp too. Like we do that thing, just kind of before we wrap up, get out of here, because I know we haven't talked too much about camp. Like we talk about camp without talking about camp, and of course,
Right.
go to Locked On, go to LouisianaSports.net, go to Saints News Network or Saints on Sports Illustrated. We've got all the information there. Like if you want to know all the details, what happened at practice, we're here to just kind of talk, entertain, be whatever, you know what I mean? But at the same
Mhm.
time, anything that really stood out to you in training camp day 20 that we should definitely talk about. I'm going to go over my notes too, just to make sure I'm like, hey, I briefly touched on the DeMarco Jackson interception. I mean, that was a
Strong
good
day.
play. Strong day for him. Like I really love me some DeMarco Jackson, a guy that we talked about months ago when people said that he doesn't have a role on this team. That's not true.
Right.
I like what
Right.
I saw from Colin Saunders today, man. Bink's got
Same. He had a great day
little bit
today.
of a streak going now because
Yeah.
I think he got a little bit disrespected, and I think he
Uh-huh.
felt a certain type of way from something that happened. And I don't have to sit here and broadcast it or anything like that, but
Yeah.
somebody said something, he saw it, and he's making sure that he's a good player. And I don't think
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with who starts or not, because this is a defensive rotation. But I thought he had a good day of practice. I still
Mhm.
think he's low key good in that offense. I mean, in that defense. Yeah, I want to see him
Yeah.
offense. Bink
Oh, yeah, I
down.
wanna see him on offense too. Absolutely. Give me that
Not
gumbo
yet.
package. I love it.
Oh, he said gumbo package. Oh, that's awesome. Some good runs today. I thought all
Mhm.
three racks had some good runs at the moment. And let's see, we talked about Carr, a couple of good hookups, some Foster Rowe, a good one from Spencer Rattler. I thought that was a good one over the middle that they had. Stanley Morgan Jr. had a couple of catches. I like seeing that. We saw Paulson Adebo make some impact too in his
Yeah.
return. I mean, that's a big boost to this team. And if they can get
Huge.
Marshawn back here soon, which he should be back soon, that's
Mhm.
even going to be even better. But Demario making Demario plays, that's always good too. Man, but I'm talking. What in your notes stood out?
Yeah, I got Alvin and teams. I think is is a nice one, right? It was short, it was brief, but we got to see him a
Yep.
little bit more in team. So that just shows more progress there. The connection between Derek Carr and Foster Moreau just keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger. I can't wait for Juwan Johnson to be added into that and for Dallin Holker to be back to being a part of that as well. Shaq Davis with a huge catch and run on a play action bootleg from Spencer Rattler today was probably one of my favorite plays. My favorite throw today came from Derek Carr to Taysom Hill, where he just dropped it in the bucket. I mean, a beautiful throw. Dropped in the bucket in the middle of the field on top of that. Beautiful throw. Had to get it over Demario Davis, had to get it beyond the coverage, and had to keep it underneath Jonathan Abrams so that he didn't throw the defender into the play. Just beautifully located. Great catch and great concentration by Taysom Hill as well. Taysom Hill might end up being my favorite part of this New Orleans Saints offense in 2024.
I agree.
I just can't wait I just can't wait to see all the different ways that they utilize him. And so those are some pretty big ones for me. We have Blake Grupe going 6 of 7 on the day. His one miss was from 61 yards out, which really he had the distance for. It wasn't about the distance. It was just a little bit to the left and hit that left upright. If he sneaks that one in just a little bit more to the right, then all of a sudden that one's through. And so, I think those are my other big notes for the day.
Yeah, I like the Taysom one. I put it bucket drop. That's what I had.
Bucket drop.
Bucket drop. That was a pretty big play. So I love seeing stuff like that. Again, we talked about like I don't say struggles, but like Haener and Rattler, again, talking about them. Like they made some really good throws. You just pointed out one for Rattler, but like for one series, he had a sack to start, right? And then he was able to hit Mason Fairchild for a nice little gain. And then there was a fumbled exchange there, with Shane Lemieux and such. So it's just like, and then Haener, the series before it, had a false start on his series and stuff. And it's just not without, blemish, I guess, if you will. And again, I expect to see plenty of them in the final preseason game. And again, if you're asking me now, like you've asked me a couple weeks ago, and still thing I maintain is that Jake Haener is going to be the backup. Like I just don't see anything changing on that aspect. Blake Grupe with all the stuff right now, his camp total that I have is 64 of 76. That's where I have him. And then Charlie Smith is 58 of 69. No, 57 of 69. Excuse me. Yeah. So it's close. You know what? They both missed 12. If I can do basic math. The point. No,
yes, no, you're right. You got it.
But it's just a close call. I mean, in the same aspect, but I still feel like that's a groupie job. You know what I mean? And so it's appealing. It's going to be fascinating with final roster cuts. And we're just going to wait and see how this kind of plays out, man. So any other lasting impressions from day 20, man? We got Thursday. We'll be back in the facility and with all those renovations still going on, I don't know if they're going to be done by September. Like, hopefully it doesn't push into next year, but they're not ready. But that nice little addition in the middle where they're putting that glass for practice, that's coming along. Like I see
that's gonna be pretty dope.
It looks like, but it's not even close to being finished. Like if you tell me that's gonna be done in the next month, I'm gonna laugh because I don't think so.
I'll tell you what's been really helpful for them though. I just know this from when they were building SoFi in LA. When they built SoFi in LA, it like rained out of nowhere all the time in LA for that. And it like severely delayed everything in terms of the construction in Inglewood and all of this stuff. It's been pretty dry here in New Orleans. And so I'm sure that's very helpful for that construction team that they don't have to deal with, days being delayed because of rain and all this other stuff. So at least there's that. At least there's that.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for the comment, Mills, about reporting, guys. We appreciate all your support. We really do. We're not trying to be sad and stuff, and we just thank you for tuning in, giving us time of the day, man. It really means a lot. Just a real quick question here. I don't know when Tanoh is going to come back into the mix because he's going to be pup, right? Like he's a guy that we don't expect to see anytime. And Dennis Allen said as much. Him and Nephi Sewell, we're not going to see them anytime soon, but they have. If they're start on pup, I think they have to be activated by week 8. Is it?
Yeah, I think it's after. Yeah, 9? I think they have 8 weeks to activate them.
That's what it is.
They can't activate them for the first 8 weeks. That's what it is. So they can start to activate after the 9th week, or keep them there And if they activate them at the 9th week, then they get 3 weeks of practice, and then they either have to be on the active roster or they go back to IR and their season's over.
Right. Yep. But to answer the question, he's going to be on the interior when the sub rush, most likely.
Yeah.
And then Cam's playing there, obviously, and Peyton Turner plays there, but I think he's going to be sub rush, and then he's obviously going to take his spot at the end on the edge. So hopefully they don't have a ton of injuries and stuff.
Right.
Brief scare. Peyton Turner it was slow to get up after rep. He left a little bit and then he came back. So, but that was the good news. Pete Werner did the same thing. So it's just, you got to be a little precautious because we're towards the end here. You need all these guys for week 1, and God forbid something happens and they're out of the mix. So, well, that's kind of about out for us. Ross, obviously, anything that's coming up at LouisianaSports.net and anything unlocked on that you want to say before we get out of here?
Yeah, I got my observations coming up later on tonight for some late night reading / early morning reading. So we'll get some observations for you there. And then did a live episode of Locked On Saints earlier today. So we kind of broke down like the connection between Derek Carr and Chris Olave looking better today. What does that mean for the team? Where's the offensive line stand? What else do we see from the quarterbacks? All of this stuff. And then tomorrow morning, I'll do a fresh show, taking a look at the impact of Juwan Johnson returning to the team. We're going to take a look at it from 3 specific angles on how it impacts the New Orleans Saints. So I'm really excited to dive into all that. Yep, always. Cool. What you got coming up?
I'm working on my final roster projection. Well, not really the final one. And I'm almost done with it. And so, it might be a little different than some of the people out there, but that's coming. And then obviously you still with training camp recaps and all that other stuff. And then once training camp dies down, it's season mode. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just the grind don't stop. And so we'll be back into it. And all that fun stuff, man. So it's getting close. I do want to say something totally crazy because, look, you guys know our show's kind of partnered up with FOCO and stuff. And I told them to mention something like they're so great. Like they had the live show, they sent us all the merch and stuff. And there was a little mix up. So they sent the original packaging to my house in, Louisiana. And when I needed it in California, so they sent me another box with the same stuff and all that. So I do have some extra things here. We definitely want to end up giving some of this stuff away for like subscribers and stuff like that. So stay tuned. But just want to show everybody, like, this is a SpongeBob bobblehead, Saints SpongeBob bobblehead that you can get on FOCO. Use SNN10 to get 10% off your first purchase. But there's plenty of swag that I'm going to be able to give away here soon to some of our subscribers. So just keep an eye out for that. Man, Ross, time flies. We're getting close. It feels like training camp just started, man.
Yeah, for real. I feel like I was in California yesterday.
Yeah. Let me lie. One last question. It's something that comes up. If for some reason they say Dennis Allen's not going to be the head coach, would they put him at DC? And
absolutely not.
It just doesn't happen. Like you want somebody to take your job, and then you say, "Hey, we're going to keep you on," but you're going to be the second in command after you being the head coach for all that years. I don't think that happens. That's just not how it works, right? Yeah, I just don't think so. But again, hope for the best. We'll see if that happens, but I don't know. We'll kind of check it out.
It's a very romantic idea, like in terms of like, you know what I mean? Like, I 100% understand it, because it's like, okay, but you don't want to lose Dennis Allen because of the great things that he does with the defense. So could he stay on as defensive coordinator? It's just that like demotions in the NFL don't really exist. You know what I mean? Like there's no examples of it or anything like that. It's not a thing that happens. And there's nothing about this particular situation that would make it unique. You know what I mean? And so like that's the thing that I would highlight there. And so it's a great, I get the idea and I get the desire for it, but yeah, definitely not a thing that would take place. And I
mean, it's a fair question because I mean,
for sure. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the question. It's just something we've never seen before.
I mean, you're assuming that the Saints would not make the playoffs and come in with a bad record. That's pretty much the assumption here. What would happen? I mean, like, I mean, it's valid. I don't know what the shakeup is. I don't think they would go rebuild mode necessarily, but there's so many different ways they can go. And I'm just worried about week 1, right? Like, hopefully it comes up and he can turn the corner. And, I know the past coaching records, what haunts him and follows him and stuff, but let's see what happens. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he's got a lot to prove to the fan base, just like a whole lot of players have to prove to the fan base. And your criticism is warranted in a lot of ways. You know, this is a new year, fresh start. Let's see if this team is a team that we think they can be capable of and actually go out there and execute. That's really where we're at. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. We will be back on Thursday, and then we'll be back Friday. Probably do something for the Superdome on Friday, and then game coverage. So we got Sunday. We'll see how that kind of works out, and that'll be fun. Back in the Superdome.
Yeah, man.
Going to be rocking, hopefully, and stuff. And so, great time as always, man. Ross, I appreciate all your time. You know,
always, bro.
As I publicly say, we're not just host and co-host, or two people that host the show. We're actually friends, so you have to believe it or not. So I know it's hard to believe, but at the same time, you see it, you guys know. And if you met us, but as Ross always said, if you see us out and about, come say hi. You know?
Oh, yes, please.
And we definitely want to chat, especially if you're at the Superdome practice and stuff. So, but other than that, that is going to do it for us today. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe button, tell all your friends, spread the word. Things are only going to grow from here. Got some cool things in the works, hopefully, that come to a head. And then, we want to do, we've been asked to do another live show when they play the Chargers out in LA. So we're going to see how that works out. And we might do something local here, but we're going to take it a step at a time. But appreciate all your support. Don't forget to check the links that are in our descriptions, all the ways you can support the show without us having to do a Patreon or anything like that. But that'll do it for us. I'm going to stop talking, and we're going to get out of here, and we're going to go to sleep because we all need it for sure. But we will talk at you Thursday. Thanks so much. Appreciate you guys. Have a good night.